Welcome everyone. This is the joint meeting for the Northwest, Central, and Coastal San Pedro Planning and Land Use Committees. Our meeting for September, we missed our August, but we're back and glad that you're all here. We have a couple of presentations and we're gonna get going on our first presentation. We have an update on Front Street, Harbor, and Boulevard and North Gaffney Board beautification projects. Augie and his team is here. So,
hi, good evening, everyone. Augie Bezmalinovich from the Community Affairs Advocate from the Port of Los Angeles. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. We have our project managers for both our Front Street beautification project and also our North Gaffney beautification project phase 2. I'm just going to let them go ahead and start the project. Let's do Front Street first. So Naven's going to be doing Front Street. Roger will be doing North Gaffney Street. And Naven, go ahead if you could share your screen at this moment and show us your PowerPoint and introduce yourself. Give us a little background. We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm trying to share, but I think I
had to make you a co-host first, so now you should be able to share.
Gotcha. All right, can you all see on your side?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Nathan Meese. I'm the project manager for the Front Street Beautification project, which we'll be going over today. First I'd like to thank you all for joining in, which we're presenting just key features of the project, update and an overview on timeline for this project. We also have another valuable member on the team who's here as well, and that's Sarah Aziz, who's played a tremendous role in spearheading the beginning stages of the project. So just want to give her a shout out. The end in mind of this presentation is just to provide those overview, touching base on the project's enhancement limits, the key features, and as mentioned, the major milestones and recent updates to the schedule. Looking at this slide, this just provides a general overview of the vicinity map. So before we dive in, we can just gather our bearings. The project falls north of the Vincent Thomas Bridge, so that's this color outlined in purple. And it runs up towards the intersection of Front, and let me just zoom in a little bit, Front Street and Pacific Avenue. On the northern side, we'll be connecting to an existing path, which we'll be covering over a few exhibits showing how we're connecting to that and what this proposed pedestrian path will service. On the southern limits, the path will be connecting to an existing gateway plaza just south of the Vincent Thomas Bridge, which is near that cruise terminal just off the off-ramp onto Front Street. So the main goal of this beautification project was to serve as a connector, bridging the gap between the North Gaffney pedestrian path project leading all the way down to the promenade further south. All right, this is just a quick zoom up of this overview of the vicinity map. Now, the yellow outlines represent the proposed 12-foot meandering path, again, from the limits of the Vincent Thomas Bridge to Pacific Avenue. And this is designed to service runners, walkers, bikers, you name it. It's wide enough to serve that purpose. It's surrounded by landscaping on both ends, which we'll cover on the next slide, going over that cross section. So very comfortable, for all users. And during the beginning stages of the project, we got involved with the community in terms of the planning stages and incorporated a lot of their valuable input, which has altered a few segments of our design, just increasing the safety and comfortability for all users. On to the next slide. So let me zoom in a little bit more. This is just little pieces and snippets of those elements mentioned. So starting from the left, The Gateway Plaza perspective, this is just showing that intersection of Front Street and No. So this is roughly what it'll look like, and apologies, it is slightly blurred. And what we see down here in the center is the plan view of that. So you can see, as mentioned, the meandering path, which stays away from the curb as much as possible, just to increase safety where we do have that extra real estate to work with. On the bottom right of that section, this shows the proposed 5-foot planters that are within the 18-foot improvement limits. You can see this is used as a buffer to Front Street, again, blocking access to vehicles, increasing that safety, but most importantly, providing a better visual and view for the users to promote them actually using it. To the right, again, is another planter, which then blocks off the adjacent China shipping lot. This highlights the northern connection of the project. So you can see this was built or constructed a few years back, and we're simply just bridging that gap, connecting to the existing pedestrian pathway there. In addition to the pathway, as mentioned, we have various landscape features that surround it with proposed trees, irrigation, and everything to beautify the project and shed some light in this area. Next slide focuses on the southern end connection, which then takes you to the gateway. Again, also bridging that gap to the gateway, then from the gateway would lead further south towards the Ports of Call area. A few elements that we did add, again, considering the safety of all pedestrians, is the crossing between or crossing onto Front Street with No. And we've implemented the push buttons, servicing all IDA compliance in coordination with DOT. So all that's implemented to service all users without any restrictions in this case. Touching base on milestones, so we've completed our design in April of this year. We advertised on April the 28th and opened bids just about a month and a half ago. Our anticipated construction start date is early 2023, and anticipated completion is the year after to follow in early 2024. So this includes a 9-month construction period along with a 3-month plant establishment period. So overall straightforward project, but many benefits for the overall public. All right, that concludes my presentation, and open to any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Nabil. I see we have a few questions. Pat Nate?
Who was the winning bidder? How much was his bid, and how much was the amount that was awarded to this contract under the China shipping settlement?
Yeah, so nothing's finalized yet, but at the moment, our lowest bid is Griffith, coming in at 5.6 million. So that's going to the board next month to memorialize that. But the total cost came in at 5.6 for lowest bid.
Who was the contractor again?
Griffith.
Cricket?
Correct.
Cricket?
Griff. Griffith.
Griffin.
Oh, Griffith. Okay.
Can I just clarify for that? This is not being funded through the China shipping mitigation funds. I think that was the second part of your question. So just to clarify.
Wait a minute. What fund is
So
it?
Pat, half of the project got taken out. The other half with the China shipping funds will be used when we do the I-110 SR-47 on and off ramp projects. That will that funding part of the China shipping mitigation will fund our next project that will follow up in about a year from now.
Okay.
Elise, you had a question?
I do, thank you. I'm very excited to see this project start. It's going to be fabulous. Question, who will be in charge of the ongoing maintenance once the construction is completed? And is there a budget for ongoing maintenance?
Yes, I don't have the further details as far as budget, but this is all built within Port of LA property. So this would be maintained by the port.
Thank you.
So our construction management division, yeah, they'll be maintaining it.
Thank you, Augie.
You're welcome.
Alan France, do you have a question?
Thank you. Yeah, I have two questions. One, I can't quite make out on the photo maps that you provided, whether the parking area just south of the bridge is still there. Is that converted? Yeah, right in that area there.
In this area, so there is that parking lot that's still there. So there's no modifications to that in this project at all. It's just simply connecting it to this plaza. But from my understanding, this project or this parking lot is to remain.
Okay, and secondly, I don't know how detailed the design is to this point, but I would be interested to know whether native plants have been included as a source of plants that would be appropriate to the area and which would provide habitat to wildlife.
Correct. So as far as the selection of plants, that was all determined just based on the locations and not only just aesthetics, but what can survive out here. And also trying to be consistent with the adjacent beautification projects that we have in the area.
Yeah, native plants are really pretty good at surviving in this area. Probably better than non-natives.
Correct. Yeah, I don't have the full details as far as those exact native species, but the biggest thing is we did try to salvage and keep any existing landscaping that's out there, and for the majority of what's out there now is just palm trees essentially. So there's about 21 palm trees that fall along the highlighted red portion.
Okay, so on that basis, we'll have palm trees there forever.
Yeah.
Until it comes down from due to natural causes, of course. Did that answer your question, Ellen?
In effect, thank you.
Linda, you had a question, comment.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. A comment first. We've been waiting about 10 years. Kerry Scoville put in the bid for the China shipping mitigation 10, 15, whatever, how many years ago, to get the front street improved. And it's interesting to me to see now that money's not going there, it's going to something else altogether.
No, that's not true, Linda. Maybe I'll explain it further, but go ahead, ask your question.
But what?
Go ahead and ask your question. I'll explain that further.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to request that you come to Central for this because we've been watching this for years. I would support Alan that I hope we don't plant any more palm trees in this town and get shade. I'm fortunate to live in a neighborhood that has a lot of trees, and it's like 10 degrees cooler than most of San Pedro. So we don't need any more palm trees. So I guess the question for Central really is, what other things are going to happen to delay this many more years?
So let me answer that. So the problem that we had this last time, we had this all designed, and I think we went out to bid with this project, and then our city attorneys realized that we didn't own all of this property. So there was some rail that was jointly owned by the ports of Long Beach, and we needed to get that all resolved and transferred over. That took a while to get done. And so once we became the owner of every piece of land here, we're able to go ahead and rebid this project. During that time, we realized that we're doing another project with the Vincent Thomas Bridge, the on-ramp and off-ramp projects. And we realized that when that project comes in, if we would have done Front Street, we would have to rip out a bunch of it to do the next project. So what we did was we combined part of the Front Street project. The councilman wanted to get this project going. We were going to wait for another year or so and do it all when we did the SR 47 on and off ramp project. And our councilman, you know, he insisted that the community had been waiting for a long time and that we need to do something out there. So that's why we broke this project up in two. We were able to do the east side of Front Street now, and the west side of Front Street is incorporated with the SR 47 on and off ramp project. The China mitigation funds will be spent on that side of the street. Kerry Scoville's particular project had a lot to do with the walkway that is south of the Vincent Thomas Bridge, the one that leads up to Amar Street, and you know, a couple other things along the in front of the that scanning station building and things like that. So yes, the China shipping mitigation funds will be used for Front Street beautification, but on the second half of the Front Street beautification project, when we do the SR 47 on and off ramp project. I hope that explained it.
Thank you. I have just one more question.
And Frank Anderson has already asked us to come, and I believe we're committed for November to come to San.
Great.
And just one other way before you get going, this project is completely designed. It's been bidded. We're ready to go. There's no changes here. This project, you know, is ready to go. There, you know, we're going to build it as we bid it. So, you know, palm trees, no palm trees. There are shade trees also that are going to be going into the project. So, you know, that's where we're at.
Okay. One other thing it looks like at the north end, it just drops off. Is there any way to cross the street there, or right beyond?
So the way the project is designed, the way the walk that goes all the way to the exit of Knoll Hill right now. That will become the entrance of Knoll Hill when the SR 47 project is. When the SR 47 project takes place. And if you want to cross the street, there's going to be a crosswalk right around where the China shipping entrance is to China shipping. There will be a way to cross the street there, but there won't be sidewalk that goes on the Knoll Hill side all the way around Knoll Hill. That was never, you know, part of the project.
Right. I just wondering what this drop off when it's a busy street there.
Well, when you're sitting on the China shipping side, you could walk. There's no drop off. You could walk and it'll connect to the other, you know, the rest of the path. So yeah, you know, there's no drop off there. You see the path there. You see, it's hard to tell, but side right here, that sidewalk, that yellow portion, there's a path that's already existing, so it's connected to the existing path already. You see it when he zooms in a little bit. There's a path right there.
Yeah, but I see where the yellow stops, and then if you continue on, there's cars parked.
Well, I don't know why there's
cars those appear to be maintenance vehicles.
Yeah, those cars should be there. That sidewalk right there.
Right.
Okay.
And you see that train track right there? That train track's dead. That train track's dead. That train track used to go down to Westways and stuff like that. So that's a ditch.
Get the cars out of there.
Yeah, that's a funny. You know what? I've never seen cars there. That's funny that we took a picture and there happened to be cars there that one day.
Yeah, you had to pick that day, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Diana, you had a question?
Yeah, what's the timeline now for the SR 47 or whatever it's called, interchange? When do you expect it to start? When do you expect the work to start on that?
I think they're going to be done with, well, let Sarah, go ahead, you answer. She's the project manager here.
Hi, Sarah Aziz. I'm with the Ports Engineering Division, and I'm the PM for the SR 47 project. So we've actually started pre-construction activities already. LADWP is performing some of their utility relocations out there today on Front Street. We will be advertising this project early summer of 2023, and construction is scheduled to begin at the end of next year, so late 2023. And that construction duration is roughly 3 years.
Wow.
That's kind of good, because when this project ends, you'll be starting up on the next project, more or less. The timing's going to be very close. When we finish this project, the next project will start up.
Thank you.
Let's see. Alan, do you still have a question?
No, I forgot to take my hand down.
Okay, Pat,
Yes, on the SR 47 project on the, working with the DWP, are they going to basement the utilities? Or underground the utilities?
So they are along the west side, they are undergrounding. I believe it's roughly 8 or 9 existing power poles today between the Vincent Thomas Bridge and heading north on the west side to Knoll Drive. So about 7 or 8 of those are all being undergrounded.
Are there some that are above ground that are even further up?
I'm sorry, do you mind repeating the last part of that question?
How many poles are along the south side of Front Street and along Harbor Boulevard? And why are they only doing 8 or 9 of them?
Just due to conflicts with the proposed project improvements, we were required to underground those facilities. As you head further along Knoll Hill, they will be replacing some of those older poles, but that's as we've been directed per DWP's design.
Directed by them, but have you asked them to underground the utilities?
It's definitely been, seen as part of the project. We explored that. Unfortunately, just due to budgetary reasons, it's quite expensive to underground all of it. And so at this time, we're not proposing to underground those poles.
I'll tell you what, for whatever price they're going to charge you, I'll do it for half as much.
We'll be in touch.
thanks, Pat. Let's see. We have Lori Jacobs has a question. Lori, can you hear us?
I don't think I see a Lori logged
Oh,
on.
wait a minute. Here we go.
Okay,
Try now, Lori.
Thank you. It's really hard to scream when you're muted. So I love everything about this plan except the palm trees. And please listen to Alan. You need native plants here. That's really critical. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I do need you to be aware, and Augie, I'm not sure if you know, that there is an encampment that is at the base of Knoll behind the Harbor Ock and parts of it over by the dog park. These are people that scurried away from when they cleaned out the gulch, and it's grown. And as of yesterday, there were 25 tents there. Outreach teams are looking into it. Okay, and LAPD is aware of it, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, working together to get these people housed and out of there safely.
Yes, our port police is aware of that also. Our community officers know about it, yes.
Thank you.
thank you, Lori. Let's see, I don't see any further questions.
All right, let's go ahead and get Roger up, and Roger could tell us about the North Gaffney beautification, North Gaffney Street beautification phase 2, which will connect everything. Once we do these 2 projects, everything will be connected from the north side of San Pedro, from Westmont all the way down to the breakwater. Pretty cool.
Excellent.
Well, just one other thing. Can we get a copy of your presentation?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and send you copies. I'll send it to you, Diana, and then you can hand it out to the group. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Augie.
I think Roger needs to stop screen sharing.
Yeah, I don't think I have access to the control anymore, but you can go ahead and take that over.
Who is it that's going to do the other one?
Roger's going to do it. Naven, you could stop screen sharing, I think. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then so far, I don't have access to screen share. So I believe
You do now.
give me co-host
Yeah.
abilities as well.
Yep.
I just saw it come by. Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you at, Roger? It looks like a cool place.
Oh, I'm in my office conference room. I'm just kidding. It's a virtual background.
Nice.
I was prepared. Gotta look professional, you know. Sorry, I apologize. I didn't put on my tie though.
Yeah, everybody else
Cool.
has a tie on, yeah.
We'll keep it casual. It's a
You'll
friendly
learn.
group, right? We'll keep it casual.
Mhm.
Okay, I got access here. Let me know when you guys can see.
We can see it.
All righty. I will go ahead and begin. I don't know how to run a mouse or pointer while I'm in this PowerPoint slideshow. So at any time, or maybe at the end, I can always come back out and point at different slides when we go through it. So thank you so much. Again, my name is Roger Kuo, Senior Architect for Los Angeles in the Engineering Division. It is not me as the project manager, is actually Ria Hayashi. And so, but I am presenting on the behalf of our section. So as Augie is saying, this is the small but last connector piece. If you continue on John S. Gibson Front Street, all the way to this portion is the phase 2 connecting North Gaffney Street Beautification phase 1 and the John S. Gibson North project. So let me just get into it. A little history review. We did the North Gaffney Street beautification and completed that in 2009. And that's along the east side of the street, running along from Westmont Drive to Gatun Street. And then now we are going to continue that and go from Gatun Street down to Channel Street. And design has been complete. So I just wanted to show on the left-hand side our vicinity map. You know, Augie also brought it up that this is outside of our port property. However, you know, using the China Shipping Mitigation Fund and improvements, we can utilize this cost and budget for the community. So moving along, this is just another enlarged, more clear aerial map. It's rotated, so the left side is the north side, complete in 2009, and design complete for phase 2 is the purple portion. Here's a little before and after for the first phase. First phase, it used to just be all gravel and dirt outside of the train tracks, and a lot of, I don't know if you guys remember, a lot of cars would park there. They would do, you know, repairs in their cars, leak oil in there. So we beautified it, made a nice meandering path as our theme. And if anything, it's a good view across the street from Target and Home Depot, right? So moving along to phase 2, again, same kind of condition. These are the current site conditions. Same thing in that first north part next to Gatun, a lot of dirt, gravel, a lot of people park their cars, doing repairs there, leaking oil. So we want to beautify that. A lot of palm trees. I'll have you know, we listened and we're not adding more palm trees.
Thank you.
Yeah. But we'll definitely, we're not necessarily cutting down all of them, but whatever is in conflict with the path or you know, in line with our design, we will cut down ones that are necessary. All right, so getting into some of the project overview, starting at Gatun Street. Here's a photo of cars that go through that small street. There is a rail that goes through there. We actually talked with the rail PHL. There is no need to put a rail crossing there. So the continuation for the connector just goes from phase 1 to phase 2. We actually don't ever cross to the east side of the track. So there's, if anything, that deals with the safety concern there. Moving along, again, on the east side of the street, if you keep moving along south, again, this aerial map is rotated. Left is north, going right is going to the south. If you keep moving along, the path then follows pretty much the train track, and it starts going behind the private businesses. And then at the end, the triangle area, it outlets into Caltrans park and ride lot. And we'll also be doing a little bit of improvement for Caltrans as part of our permit with them. And so then you eventually can outlet to the corner of Gaffney Street and Gatun and connect on down south. There are some plans in typical section. So, along the same theme is the meandering concrete path, the 10-foot wide path. You can have multi-use, bike, running, walking, jogging. And then we also changed the vegetation a little bit. So we were listening to our port police security. They want lower shrubs. So we went with lower shrubs and then higher trees. So there's essentially a good visual line between the 3 to 6 foot eye line range. And then plenty of large canopy shade trees. Next slide here, you'll see the vegetation that our landscape architect, Carly Wooster, picked out. And so she was good at picking out some very vibrant, bright colors as well. And then the typical lighting that you saw in phase 1 will carry that same theme through. We'll have trash cans along the path. We'll also have 3 emergency boxes, one in the one each at the ends and one towards the middle. And of course, irrigation, once the plat establishes, it's a drought tolerant irrigation. Here's a little bit more detailed look. So the China Shipping Mitigation Fund we have remaining is 3.15. We will exhaust and use all of that towards the phase 2. That is actually not enough to finish the project. So we are actually using another 899,000 in our own CIP budget to complete the path to Channel Street and a few Caltrans improvements. And so if you look up top, little enlarged partial plan, it's actually narrows down from 10 feet to a 6-foot wide straight path. And that runs along the south or west edge of the parking lot. And it will also do restriping, repaving, or top coat paving and restriping for Caltrans. And here are some milestones. So like I mentioned, design is complete. We are getting ready for advertisement in November. And if all goes smoothly, we will follow shortly construction starting in May, follow shortly the Front Street construction. And we are hopeful that it's an accelerated construction schedule of only 9 months and can complete around the same time as Front Street. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roger. Mr. Alan France, you have a question.
Thank you, Javier. I'd like to thank Augie and Roger and Sarah for the presentation. It's very informative. I don't know if it's because I missed something in a prior meeting, but it's frustrating to me to see this as a fait accompli after it's been essentially completed in concept, simply not implemented, and it's too late to make any changes. But for future references, I really appreciate the trail that's been put in the segment that's been done before, and I support the idea of continuing that pedestrian and bike trail. But the plant palette, again, leaves me quite frustrated. We are living in a time and place where the city is paying people to take out lawns. And it looks like more than half the vegetated surface in the design areas and then the completed area is lawn. There are native grasses that need less water. You mean, as one suggestion. The rest of the palette is essentially generic, and people in this town and in most towns don't think they're generic. They think there's something distinctive about them, that they have their own character, and part of that is the plants and animals that have been there for a while, and many of which are still here. So a lot of us have, you know, raccoons and opossums and assorted plants that we may think of as weeds, but which grow here well. They're adapted to the climate, the soils, and provide habitat to wildlife. So I hope in the future the port will take considerations like that more seriously in the design process, and or be flexible to consult a bit more widely with community members who may bring a different perspective than simply generic. Thank you.
Excellent. Pat?
Yeah, I echo Alan's comments on the lawn. I mean, what's going to happen with the lawn area in phase one? And then also, what are you going to do about the fountains in the, you know, where they at the other end of the Front Street improvements? Are those things ever going to be turned back on?
Yeah, we last night at the NC and Chamber Presidents meeting, Tony Gioiello came and gave a update on the fountain and the struggles that we had with the fountain. So we're planning on filling it. I believe it was either the end of next month or something like that. And then we're looking at it. Geez, you know, when we designed all this stuff 10 years ago, we were, you know. It's funny. I'm going to tell you, we must have given this presentation of these two projects at least 50 times. The neighborhood councils at least 50 times over the last 10 years, and gotten a bunch of comments and stuff like that. But the fountains will be online again, and I know what's going to happen. As soon as we're going to want to fill that water, we're going to say we can't. We're in a drought. You know, we're not going to be able to fill up those fountains. I know, I almost want to predict that. But Tony gave a nice little update. And yes, the fountains will be are supposed to be going back online soon. And hopefully by the end of this year, they'll be performing and everything like that. It was the goal. Yeah.
My main questions have to do with the financing. You know, the port has kind of had the attitude over the years that these are gifts to the community, but they're really not. They are settlements of litigation, and they are an obligation of the port. The cost for phase one, as I recall, was 1.5 million, and this was a $5 million grant. So the 3.15 remaining, there's what, $350,000 difference between the 3.15 and the 3.5, which would be the remainder available.
I'm pretty sure, Pat, I think you're wrong. I'm pretty sure that the phase one was 2 million. What I remember.
I can help fill in some of the numbers. The total is 5.2 million. And we spent 5.2 million.
All right.
And we spent 2.05 in phase one.
Okay, so that's what.
So that leaves it. That's how we have the remaining 3.15.
Right. In judgments. And this was a settlement, but it was reduced to a judgment. When you have a judgment in court, until the money is paid, you pay interest on it. The city gets 3% on its overnight rate, and it's between 2009 and 2022, 13 years.
Pat, our engineers aren't going to be able to answer that. I mean, this is a little bit, but if you look at it, we're throwing an extra $900,000 into this project. So I think that's
you're only $450,000 short on what the interest is. The interest is 3%. So let me finish my sentence.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because Detective Hawk is online, and he's one of the litigants too. So I hope he's listening to this, because he does talk to NRDC. You're making me mad now by interrupting. But anyway, look, 3% on 13 years on $3 million is a little under 1.4 million. So you really, you're spending about 4.1. You're still about $450,000 short on what the funds is. I mean, that's not in conformance with the settlement agreement, as far as I'm concerned. Just take that.
All right. But I remember this being hashed over with the city attorneys internally, and this was something that's been brought up, this project done. You guys could fight about the money and where it all goes, but this project's going to be getting done here soon, and the other project's going to be getting done soon too.
Well, the reason it's important is because it affects your planning on providing for the projects. If you think you only have a certain amount of money, don't give credit to the interest, then you short the community on what you're planning to do. I'm done.
Yeah.
Mr. Hawk.
Yes. Oh, yeah, it's too bad. You guys can use that money to buy that junkyard property that we can't see this new project on. The junkyard being that storage facility, the construction equipment. There's nothing more than a junkyard. You should have bought that property so we can see this new project.
Yeah.
And second of all, I've been asking for those trees on the phase 1 project to be replanted or taken care of. You planted the wrong kind of trees to replace the ones that died. And now there's more dead trees. There's something wrong with that watering system apparently, or a disease. But anyway,
Yeah,
it looks terrible. Those trees should be replaced or repaired.
Yeah, I spoke to Danny Hughes about that just recently because I drive by there all the time. More of the trees have died. We don't believe it's a watering problem. We believe that there's a disease. And the only trees that are actually quite healthy are the 3 that aren't the same trees. They look similar, but they're the healthiest ones out there, Chuck. That's kind of funny. But yeah, we're aware of that. And Danny has that on his list of things to do. But I agree with you. You could see that they're dying one by one. You could see that there's some type of disease going on over there. So I've asked them to get an arborist out there and take a look at it. I'll double check with them again, but I brought that up to them quite recently.
It's surprising because Australian willows, the original planting, are real hardy trees. I'm surprised, but
Yeah.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Jason, you have a question. You're muted somehow.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to chime in about the trees and plantings as well. Concerns about the lawn and the trees along that strip. So maybe that's mostly been discussed, but on a related note to that, does the port have any gray water capture, any water reclamation to be used to irrigate these sorts of features?
My understanding is we put in purple pipe on our first phase. We have purple pipe going all the way south, but I don't believe there's any of that reclaimed water available to us yet. But when we did do a lot of these things, we put that purple pipe anticipating for that in the future. That's my understanding.
Okay, good. That was my question. Thank you.
I can validate that. That's correct, Augie. We put in the infrastructure, although there's no source for the water.
Source.
We also did it for all of Harry Bridges Park and the Tray Pack terminal just south of it as well, but unfortunately no reclaimed water source.
And the port's not capturing any water that falls on it at all.
Are we capturing water?
Are you capturing?
Well, we're not a utility company, right? So even if we do have infiltration capture, but that's only per site. But even then, we don't distribute that captured water, right? We're only trying to replenish the groundwater table.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I do want to note real quickly, these are just samples. So for example, this tree with the lawn here, we actually do not have any grass or lawn on phase 2. So yes, phase 1 has all this lawn. Lawn is a very water consuming vegetation, but for phase 2, it's mainly all just the low shrubs and the shade trees, and all around it will be hardscape. Just want to clarify that. So we are very strategic in being water efficient.
Thanks, Roger. John Bagakis.
Thank you. Good evening. I actually first want to start off with saying I definitely support this project. I've been waiting for it for a long time. I'm one of the businesses on the corner of Channel and Gaffney that I employ actually in upwards of 40 people right now. So my concern is, and it's more of a broad concern, it's not with the project in general, it's just with the construction side of things. I actually really appreciate the quickness of that construction time period. That's a pretty short period, not what we were expecting. So that's a great sign. But that park and ride lot is used a lot for employee parking, not just for myself, but for 6 to 8 other neighboring businesses. There's an active skate park in the lot that just reopened after an 8-year closure, and there's a lot of positive buzz. So the concern and the question is the closure of that property, which I assume at some point will have to be closed. Will that be in segments? Will it be all at once? Because it could really just cause a lot of issues for the businesses here, and it's used as overflow customer parking. This is a tough side of town as far as parking. So just some thoughts on what the timeline is as far as the closure of the Caltrans lot, and if there can be a conversation where we can be a part of segmenting it, because there are 2 entrances on 2 opposite sides, and it's very convenient to get in and out from either side. So just curious about what that looks like.
Augie, you want me to go ahead or you want to respond?
I don't, yeah, go ahead, Roger, if you know.
Thank you so much for the feedback. We do value private businesses, right? And so part of the improvement is to re-top coat and restripe. And I think in the long run, that will really help everybody, right? Because you know the condition of that lot right now.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Right. And obviously, you know, slope for rainwater, all that good stuff. You know, the simple fact is, in the 9 months, it probably will not be closed entirely for the 9 months. But as you know, it's much easier to manage and coordinate if you just close it down, get everything done, and release it back out. We are in contact with our construction division, and we will definitely be talking with our contractors, the eventual awarded contractor. A step phase could be a possibility. It all depends on what the discussion is. However, that could complicate things and may even extend it past 9 months if you have to step and phase it. So we'll take in all considerations. If we're allowed to talk to you, I myself have no problem having a dialogue on that.
That'd be appreciated. Yeah, I've seen a lot closed before for an extended period of time, and it's been really, really tough on especially the businesses. What was frustrating is you could see the work happening all on one side of the lot, and the other side that has a dedicated entrance exit area was just not used and just closed to be closed, and it was very frustrating. But I think the other side of it too, from the port's perspective, is, you know, that skate park was a rough project, 8 years of stress to get that opened, and I'd hate to see some outrage, and there probably will be if they're not able to use that after they just reopened it after a really tough path of pushing to get that legalized and certified and all the permitting done, and they just had a grand reopening, and to shut them down again would be kind of heartbreaking. Those kids are great. They do take care of the lot. They do help keep a lot of the riffraff out of the lot. So they do have a positive impact back there.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any further questions. So I believe that's all we have. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Augie, and thank you. Forget the previous person, but thanks for the presentation. And like Diana said, if we could have a copy of it, we would appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll get you I'll get the copy to Diana and she'll go ahead and distribute it to your folks. Yeah, thank you. Thank our engineers. I thank our engineers personally too. I know that they're taking their time out from their busy schedule. And it's kind of late for them. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate you being here. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
No problem. Thank you for the feedback and thank you for your patience on these projects.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, and that's the presentation on the proposed infrastructure financing district. Is Joseph here? Diana, do you see him?
He's here.
Yes, okay, I see him. Okay. Joseph Burgess of Rosemont is here to do the presentation. Go ahead, Joseph.
Thank you very much. Good evening, committee members. I will be sharing my screen here in a moment. So as mentioned, my name is Joe Dieguez. I work for a consulting company called Cosmont Companies. We are retained directly through SCAG, the Southern California Association of Governments, but essentially being deployed to the city of Los Angeles, working most closely with the Housing Authority, HACLA, and Council District 15 on a funding and financing tool that I'd like to talk about tonight. This tool called an Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, or EIFD. So not technically a land use tool, understanding this is a land use committee, but I believe it was Diana that believed it may be relevant, and certainly Council District 15 and SCAG and our team agreed it was perhaps worth at least an informational presentation to this group. We're very happy to do this. Covered intros, I'd like to talk a little bit about different organizations involved, what this tool even means, what it does, what the goals and expectations are of our work, where it could potentially go from here, and then be very happy to entertain questions from the group. So as mentioned briefly, the players, City of Los Angeles is sort of the beneficiary of a SCAG grant. So our contract is directly through SCAG, and SCAG has deployed us for use by the City of Los Angeles, CD15 and HACLA. We're evaluating this funding tool, this Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, or EIFD. The idea is it's a tool to finance infrastructure, other public projects, affordable housing from property tax revenue growth, somewhat similar to the old redevelopment agencies. Not exactly, but somewhat similar to the old redevelopment agencies. The goal, the reason why SCAG awarded the grant is it's through a housing program, that REAP funding that folks may be familiar with, Regional Early Action Plan funding through the California Department of Housing and Community Development. And so HACLA played a big role in getting the grant, with sort of Rancho San Pedro being one of the main potential uses of funds, more so the infrastructure to support that development. So the whole idea is that the tool is only able to fund public improvements and affordable housing. It is very importantly not a tax, right? Despite the fact that it starts with the word tax increment financing. It's not a new tax for property owners or businesses or residents. It's really sort of an allocation mechanism where instead of dollars flowing into the city's general fund, the city and potentially the county, if it agrees, they're voluntarily putting aside some future property tax dollars, like a retirement account or a college savings account, what have you, just making sure dollars are set aside for infrastructure and affordable housing. The alternative is not putting the dollars in this special fund, but allowing them to flow unencumbered to the general fund. It just enables a little bit less control to keep the dollars local. That's sort of one of the benefits that CD15 was looking at. This tool allows the ability to keep the dollars local.
Hey. Yeah, hey Pat, how are you? Good. If you're not doing anything, the Joint Planning Committee is having a presentation right now.
Okay. Sorry about that, Joe.
No problem. Happens. So that's what we're up to. keeping the dollars local for infrastructure and affordable housing. So what's this tool? I tried to cover it, to hammer it home. It's a funding and financing tool, not a land use tool at all. It's a funding and financing tool that enables public jurisdictions, ideally both the city and the county, to just set aside a portion of future property tax revenues within a certain boundary and designating them for affordable housing and infrastructure. So the idea is as private investment comes in for new development or rehabilitation, some piece of the future property tax revenue gets set aside into the separate EIFD fund, so to speak, to be earmarked for those eligible projects, infrastructure and affordable housing. We keep using the word infrastructure. What does it actually mean under the EIFD law? Probably a lot of the things you might imagine, maybe some things that you wouldn't: water, sewer, roadway, transportation, parks. There are specific interesting call outs like childcare facilities, libraries, remediation of contaminated land. I have mentioned affordable housing a few times. Broadband infrastructure is specifically called out. There's this category called improvements to address climate change, and then there are some sub-bullets to that: improvements that address sea level rise, wildfire prevention, extreme heat, even spread of infectious diseases. The law's kind of been evolving every year since it was first introduced in 2014 to become a little bit more broad, a little bit more flexible. And then it was last year that a new category was added in the bottom right here: improvements utilized by small businesses and nonprofits. And it sort of reintroduced the world of potentially funding facade improvements, maybe homeless shelters or other facilities used by small businesses or nonprofits. That's what's eligible under the EIFD law. It's really picked up really since 2017, the actual application of this tool across the state. We've got about 21 of these formed throughout the state, up and down. They're all so different between coastal communities, inland communities, NorCal versus SoCal. Some of them are just like in the Central Valley, just focus on basic water, sewer infrastructure, getting communities off sort of wells and septic. And then in Los Angeles, a lot of the emphasis has been transit-oriented, sort of infill development, the infrastructure to support those things. So LA County is probably the leader in the state in having these formed, and also having the county act as a partner to the local city and match that property tax allocation. Not to get too much detail, happy to get into any case studies if folks are interested. The first city-county partnership in the county was over in Laverne. That was focused around the future Gold Line station. A lot of it was just pedestrian bridge, getting folks to and from a transit station safely, not getting hit by a car on Arrow Highway. A little bit closer here, unincorporated County of Los Angeles, they did their own in the West Carson community to facilitate development of the Harvard UCLA Medical Center master plan. There's some supportive infrastructure. That was a lot of the focus there, as well as some affordable housing focus. What we're actually up to under the scope of our work is studying the tool, a bunch of different scenarios to see, does it make sense at all? And if it does make sense, under what circumstance? So our job is to provide input first to HACLA and CD15, and then eventually to City Council, ideally the County Board of Supervisors, for them to make a decision. What that means specifically is letter A, we're looking at different boundary alternatives for how this district could look. Letter B, what does that actually mean in terms of dollars, over what period of time, how much can you access, when? Letter C, what you can actually pay for. This is the most popular topic in our discussions with various stakeholders. What are you going to do with the money, so to speak? Letter D is the partner, main ones being the city and the county. In many cases, we've got private sector partners. In some cases, private sector developers, for example, are willing to advance funding for infrastructure beyond their fair share requirement, and the tool can be sort of a reimbursement mechanism. That's just one example. And then our scope of work, if the community is behind it, if the electeds are behind it, part of our contract is actually to form the thing, not just to study it, but to actually put the mechanism in place, which is what we really enjoy doing, as long as the community is in support. So looking at various boundary alternatives, the most extensive scenario is the one on this page 9, pretty much the entirety of the definition of the San Pedro community, including a donut hole in the middle of unincorporated community. That's just the most extensive boundary we're looking at. So what's been brought up so far, at least as far as categories, so within what's eligible, which is more than what I showed on that other slide, is the law has 18 categories essentially. And it starts with the words including but not limited to. But the ones that have been coming up a lot in our discussions, first with Lisa's group, the Chamber in June, and then a resident group associated with One San Pedro, what's coming up is affordable housing, different forms of public transportation, parks and open space, water and other utilities, streets and sidewalks, libraries, childcare centers, parking, broadband, and improvements to buildings used by small businesses and nonprofits. That latest available category that was just added. So those are what's being brought up so far. I should mention that should this thing move forward, there's this plan that gets drafted, the Infrastructure Financing Plan, or IFP, and that document is required to document with a good amount of specificity what you're going to do with the money. And so as we move forward between now and the end of our contract in June, is to get more and more specific. How many dollars for each category? What exactly do you mean when you say affordable housing? All those sorts of questions, just to give you all a sense of where this may go. So public involvement plan is one part of our scope. We've got an outreach partner called the Sierra Group. Maybe you've been reached out to by them. We've had some stakeholder briefings I mentioned with the Chamber and the resident group associated with One San Pedro. We had, some of you may have run into us at our first Thursday on September 1st, where we had a booth set up at the HACLA building. That was us. And then tomorrow, actually, we will have a virtual, different from our first Thursday. Tomorrow will be fully virtual, kind of like this in the evening. I'll share details in a moment for those who may not already be aware, to allow really anyone, any member of the public to attend and hear our, become informed on the topic and give input. That's the thing. And all of this is just in this evaluation phase of work. If this were to move forward into implementation, the law requires a completely separate set of public meetings and hearings. It's typically, at least 4 are required. It typically ends up being 6 public meetings convened at least 30 days apart, where that plan that I mentioned, that infrastructure financing plan with all the gritty detail, it's required to be presented in detail to at least the landowners and residents within the boundaries. But they're public meetings that anyone can attend. So in short, the next steps are continuing to get some input, thoughts, even feedback from this group on these categories. If we're missing something, if you're seeing gaps, let's talk about it. We'll let you know if it's eligible, and if so, we'll kind of want to add it to our list. But essentially, we're breaking up our work into 2 phases, kind of study, evaluation, and outreach to the end of this calendar year. And if there is support, the actual implementation would be next calendar year, 2023. So that's it. I just want to make one quick plug for the workshop tomorrow night. You may have seen an invitation that looks something like this graphic on my page by Zoom tomorrow at 6:30. If you didn't already see it, Diana may have the details for you as well. The webinar ID is good for Zoom. You can just call in at this number. If you want to get the Zoom link, you could scan this QR code on the bottom of the page as well. Love to continue to stay in contact. So thank you for sitting through that. I'd love to address questions.
Thank you, Joe. I see we have a question from a few people. Chuck, can you hear us?
I can, yes. I must have missed it. Did you say there was not going to be any increase in taxes to fund this?
Absolutely not.
And how's that going to be accomplished?
What this would be setting up is almost like a budget allocation mechanism where dollars that would otherwise go to the city and potentially the county general fund, some portion of future dollars, future property tax dollars that would otherwise go to the general fund would be instead deposited into this special fund designated for infrastructure or affordable housing. So your tax bill, a resident, a property owner, a business, they wouldn't see the difference on their tax bill. It's sort of going on behind the scenes with how that same dollar of property tax gets apportioned.
I don't understand that, but it sounded like you said maybe in the future there may be some increase in taxes. Is that a yes or a no?
Not from this tool, no. The clarification that I could have been clearer about is value growth. As that, if today something's worth $100 and a couple of years down the road it's worth $200 just from organic growth or from new development or rehabilitation. What the tool does is say some piece of that value growth is being apportioned separately, but nothing about the tax rate that owner is paying is changing as a result of this tool.
All right, so no increase in taxes, but an increase in taxes depending on growth. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elise, you have a question?
I do. Hi, Joe. Elise Swanson, San Pedro Chamber, member of Coastal Land Use. So I want to thank you for the amazing job you did at First Thursday on the community outreach. That was a wonderful event. And I wanted to clarify on slide 10, are those ranked by how the inputs coming in from the community?
No,
So
and I apologize if I gave that misconception.
Okay, so these are some of the categories, but do you have any information yet on how the community's weighing in on different topics? Or will that be in the final report?
I do. We just prepared it. It's going to be shared at the workshop tomorrow, but since you asked, if you give me one moment, I will give a preview.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you.
Since we're going to share it tomorrow anyway. So we show it a couple different ways. You bear with me for 1 second. So what we've shown is on this page 16, that hopefully is legible. So we're breaking it out here by what we heard from the chamber, what we heard from the Rancho San Pedro resident group, what we heard at First Thursday, which was our best turnout. Thank you to all those if you're on this call. If you stop by our booth on First Thursday, that's this public workshop #1 at First Thursday column. And then this total so far to the far right is where we sit today. Snapshot with and then whatever. Some people like pie charts better than tables. Doesn't matter. Same information. This one on 17 is just organized. Same info consolidated among that various outreach on how it's shaking out so far.
Okay, great, thank you. And then one quick question, I'll be on the call tomorrow night too, but some conversation we're having at the chamber under the affordable housing category. Can some of those funds be used for affordable home ownership projects?
Yes.
Versus rental, can it be broken out like that?
Yes, it can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. Robin, do you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, Robin Rudisell, Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council. It sounds like, if I'm understanding this right, it sounds like a really long-term sort of scheme. If these property taxes that are being collected from new development now as it comes in are going to be accumulated and grown to a point where there's enough to put towards any one of these types of projects you're talking about. It sounds like it might take years depending on the amount of new development. And I'm wondering a couple things. One, couldn't this possibly be an issue for the city of Los Angeles not getting these tax revenues in their budget, maybe resulting in some kind of a shortfall for the overall city? Who actually decides where the dollars are used? I see you're getting input from different groups, but I'm wondering at what point and where the decisions as to where the dollars go are actually made. And then third, are there any negatives that you could share? Thank you.
Absolutely. So your first and your third are related in that the biggest negative, objectively speaking, is that you are encumbering dollars that would otherwise go to the general fund. And that's why when we do these across the state, our toughest critic, it's not negative, it's just tough, appropriately skeptical conversations are CFOs, our finance directors, our CAOs in the city of Los Angeles. So the negative is $1 here is not $1 in the general fund. And the way through that is to try to strategically define a boundary and set of targeted projects where you can defensively claim you're bringing about a circumstance that wouldn't happen the same way otherwise, that you're somehow catalyzing growth if you're making sure that infrastructure is in place for new development. And our greatest skeptic is often within City Hall and our finance department and our CAO. So the answer to the first question is absolutely yes. It's an encumbrance on the general fund, and we have already on all of the potential EIFDs in the city of Los Angeles, including one in downtown, one just east of downtown potentially. We're not involved, but I believe there's another one under study in Hollywood. It's how are you balancing? And so just to be very clear, when we talk about growth of future property tax dollars, in no scenario are we saying all of them are going to be encumbered. We're often looking at scenarios like 25%, 33%, maybe 50%, although that probably feels like a reach of the future dollars might be set apart in this fund. And then beyond that, a lot of our, just to give you a peek behind the curtain, a lot of our most recent internal conversations with city CAO is, what if just instead of a flat baseline, we have sort of a growing baseline to make sure that we're keeping within the general fund some level of growth to make sure we're staying fully funded in good times and bad for our basic services. And beyond that moving baseline, then we can talk about percentage EIFD versus percentage general fund. So those are the key details that so it's certainly a balancing act. Funding capacity for the tool, general fund long-term solvency. So spot on. I think you nailed the key issue. Who determines the project? Multiple layers. There is a new entity that gets created, something called a Public Financing Authority, PFA. It varies depending on how many taxing entities are contributing dollars. Base case is city goes this alone and the county is not a partner. In that case, you've got a 5-member board. 3 are members of the city council or the mayor, and 2 are members of the public appointed by the city council, 3 and 2. Where we expect and hope this will go, as have the others in LA County, it does have a county partnership. We've been keeping the same 5 people, although it can be more. And there have been 2 members of the city council, the mayor or city council member, 1 county supervisor, 1 member of the public appointed by the city council, and 1 member of the public appointed by the county board of supervisors. And that body, the PFA, is really in charge of managing this thing. But very importantly, it's not like the keys are turned over completely to this new body. That plan that I mentioned that gets drafted, the infrastructure financing plan, that is required to be quite prescriptive about how many dollars you're expecting, what are you going to do with it, your timelines, everything else. That plan, aside from being approved by the Public Financing Authority, it has to separately be approved by the full city council. If the county is a partner, it has to separately be approved by the county board of supervisors. And then there are those series of public meetings that I mentioned, at least 4 or likely 6, where at the third of 3 hearings in that mix, landowners and residents within the boundary have an opportunity to protest. And if there is a majority protest from the combined number of landowners and registered voters, that's sort of an additional checks and balance. If there's a protest, formation has to halt. So sort of PFA, city council, county board, and then this landowner resident protest. Those are the checks for how this thing gets approved. And your specific question was determines the project. That's probably the most important component of the plan. What are you going to pay for?
And why is SCAG promoting this? Why are they in such strong support of this?
2 key reasons. One is infrastructure is a key component of their Connect SoCal Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy, RTP SCS, and they've really taken the mantle on affordable housing production. So between affordable housing and infrastructure, SCAG has realized that with RDA, redevelopment agencies gone, for better or worse, this is the closest we have. And so if it as a regional entity, as a metropolitan planning organization, wants to see housing and transportation implemented on that sort of scale, it's sort of trying to grease the tracks for its 191 cities and 6 counties by making this technical assistance available. And so obviously SCAG is not predetermining whether it gets done. They're saying, here's money to study it, inform it if you want to do it, but community and cities and counties, if you don't like it, it was at least worth a look. Maybe it doesn't make sense at the end of the day. If you look at our contract details, our last task is either form the thing or write why you didn't form the thing. It's not predetermined.
All right, thank you.
Pat, you have a comment?
Who?
You're muted. Pat.
No, I'm not.
No, I said Pat. You're next, Frog.
Now he's unmuted.
Hey, now I'm muted now. Thanks.
Okay.
This really does look an awful lot like the old CRA program, except that now you've made the entirety of San Pedro a district. I'm assuming that the EIFD would have the power to issue bonds, and that's how you would put it payable out of the tax increment funds, and that's how you would pay for early projects. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, while not required, we think most of these will issue debt. Not required, but it's an option that we think many of these will utilize.
One thing that bothered me about the old CRA thing is that some developers insisted on being given the anticipated tax increment funds of several $1 million. And so it was basically a diversion from, costs, from benefits available to the entire district. The other thing is that it looks like, I think that basically I like the ideas of what you're saying to promote development of infrastructure and the needed infrastructure to make the town better. What it will have the impact of doing, though, is raising property values, not necessarily a bad thing. But then on the sale of property, it raises taxes in the neighborhoods that don't really probably get much benefit from the EIFD throughout the community. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I'll take both sort of types of comments. We've sort of had to spend a lot of time, for better and worse, kind of talking about how these things compare to the old RDAs. We think, fortunately, for the purposes of keeping the dollars truly public, what's been drafted in the law has kind of eliminated the possibility to just, return the dollars to the developers for their market rate and commercial stuff. Since it's, while I keep saying it's broad and flexible, it's broad and flexible within the world of infrastructure and affordable housing. In your comments, Pat, I kind of hear the experience. If it can be abused, someone's going to find a way to abuse it. So maybe you're right. Yeah, of course, I think you're right. And my expectation is if stuff like this starts to get abused in a way, what we expect with this EIFD is, since we've already been seeing annual revisions to the law, they're probably going to have to tighten some things up if people are finding loopholes. But very importantly, as it sits today, and as all the ones that have been formed so far, it's kind of eliminated that possibility to be abused in the way that the old RDAs were, in the form of, developer give backs. But people always find loopholes. So I think we just have to keep a watchful eye on all of these, including this potential one. On the second comment about potential gentrification, maybe even displacement, to take it a step further, we end up having to talk about it a lot. Last week I had a pretty tough conversation in East Los Angeles about one of those other ones I mentioned, a community that has grown incredibly aware and obviously against displacement, often associated with gentrification. And what we tell them, it's never an easy conversation anyway, but it's sort of what you're going to do with the dollars. In that case, it's probably going to be devoted almost entirely to affordable housing. And the message that we try to convey there, that we think we're doing defensibly, is, this tool is not going to change land use, but it may establish a mechanism to somehow capture the value of whatever happens and just make sure that what is done with the money from that growth, from that value growth, is something that the local community wants. There are so many dynamics at play. I think what you recognize is there could easily be a motivation. You set up this tool, the tool clearly benefits. as value grows. So why wouldn't someone who's some fan of this tool say, yeah, I really want that value growth because it gives my tool more money? I think it's just got to be really transparent in how the plan gets drafted. What's your expectation? What are you going to do with the money? There's no room to hide in these with all this reporting and the public hearings and the level of prescription required in the plan and what you're going to do. We would say it's sort of anti-productive if you're going to be setting aside money for affordable housing and yet trying to juice more and more market rate just to get dollars for affordable housing. But you know, we're just kind of the technical advisors on this. It's such a nuanced topic. I don't think I have like a perfect answer to that point. I have thought about it. We've all thought about it on our team. It's just such a tough question.
Thank you.
Rock, you had a comment.
Yeah, I mean, how different is this from a tax increment district?
It is. This is a form of tax increment financing.
Right.
Compared to
Which
the
have been
old
around
RDA,
for what, 30 years?
Since 52, actually. Yeah, it's
There you
quite a
go.
long time.
So, I mean, this is not a novel concept. And so that's what I mean. It's not very strange or whatever. It's a way to capture dollars that get thrown off projects to actually promote them, right?
I may have missed the key. Can you just repeat that last part again? I apologize.
Well, I mean, you get projects developed and they produce increased property tax values, and that fuels financing for projects, right?
Correct.
Right. So, I mean, I just, my only point was this is not a relatively new and novel concept. It's just crafting it toward specific needs of the community, right?
Correct. That's the goal.
All right. Thanks.
Pat, do you have another comment?
Yes, what's the reason, you know, all of our emphasis in over the last several years, for sure, actually for the last 50 years, is what to do and how to develop kind of downtown San Pedro for the most part, and to have an organized way of developing the town. So I'm kind of curious as to why you included so much of San Pedro in the AIFT.
Transparently, Pat, it's about dollars. That scenario I showed is our largest boundary alternative. We've looked at probably 15 boundary alternatives. One of them was just downtown. And in that scenario, we were getting pennies. It was like there's just no meaningful funding capacity created. And so we were finding that we had to go to those larger scenarios to get into the, you know, the range of 20 to 30 million of spendable dollars in 5 years, and maybe 50 to 70 million dollars in 10 years, funding you could actually do projects with. So it's kind of at a necessity that some of our boundaries were as large as the one that you saw, but by no means is that boundary set. We're showing it to show the largest boundary scenario, so hope people we reach out to can say, wait a second, you showed me just a tiny San Pedro one. Now you're growing it. But that's why we've,
essentially it's like asking all of San Pedro to support things that would better all of our lives in some areas, because most of the development money would go, you know, in a few areas and not everywhere, right?
That's the idea, correct.
Yeah, so essentially doing something to improve Warner Grand Theater, for example, would benefit the entire community, and we wouldn't all pay, well, we would pay for it because the increased values of our houses increases the amount of taxes on them, and the increment stays here close to home to improve the Warner Grand. Okay, thank you.
Let's see, any further questions? I don't see any raised hands anymore. I think that's it, Joe. Thank you for the presentation. I had a chance to be on the first public meeting, and it was very informative. So I imagine that tomorrow's is going to be just as well. And I hope everybody, I've been promoting it, so hopefully other people get the chance to see that as well, and get all their questions answered. So thank you again.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to our next item. And it's Nico's Pizzeria request for beer and wine license, an update on restaurant beverage program. Deborah Roberts is here to do that.
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Just real quickly, I made a presentation to the San Pedro Chamber on behalf of Nico's a few weeks ago. Nico's Pizzeria, I think most of you are familiar with in downtown on 6th and Mesa. Existing business has been there. You probably know better than I, at least 15 plus years. They're looking to expand. So you know their current footprint. There's an adjacent retail portion to that building, approximately another 1,600 square feet that takes you to the alley before you hit the San Pedro Chamber building. They are going through a permit process through the Department of Building and Safety to hopefully get those approvals for that expansion. That expansion, again, would increase the square footage by about 1,600 square feet, but also increase the number of seats, roughly currently at 60, and go up to about 90, 95 fixed seats. As part of the process of the expansion, Nico's is looking to utilize the city's new restaurant beverage program. It was passed by the city council earlier this year. I think it was March 31st, the ordinance became effective. So this is one of the, perhaps maybe the newest or only permit for this restaurant beverage program in the San Pedro community that's come up to date. In essence, it expedites the conditional use beverage program. So most of you are probably familiar with the conditional use beverage. A sit-down restaurant or an entertainment space would have to go through a protracted and lengthy and expensive process, usually would take upwards of 9 months, perhaps as long as a year and a half. You would require to do extensive public outreach, and the fee would be, just for the application in and of itself, was $12,000. There's been long discussions from the restaurant industry and folks in the business community, and sympathy and empathy with community members as well as city council members to differentiate between a restaurant and an entertainment use. A restaurant whose core business, 60, 70%, 80% of its sales really are food services, and the beverage is just an additional opportunity to provide services to those customers who want to drink beer or drink wine while they're enjoying their meals. So this new restaurant beverage program was again established a few months ago. The application fee is cut more than half. It's about $5,000 for an applicant to submit, and it's about a 30, upwards of maybe 60-day review period. It doesn't require the extensive public hearing where you would send out notices to everyone within a 500-foot radius of the business. What's required is to just make some outreach to some of the local key business organizations and neighborhood groups. So that's why I'm here tonight. And again, I was making a presentation to the San Pedro Chamber a few weeks ago, where the Land Use and Planning Committee recommended approval to the board. I think, Elise, I think they went to the board last week.
Yes, full disclosure, the board of directors did vote to support Nico in his request for this application.
So that's why I'm here tonight. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But again, the key thing is make sure that you're aware of it. This is a new use of the program. You're familiar with it. There may be some other restaurants in the community that may be interested as well, or new businesses coming in. But again, it's to expedite and streamline the process and make it less costly and burdensome for folks who we know are good operators. I think Nico has a very good track record in the community, downtown San Pedro. No problems with the police department, no nuisance activities. Again, hours of operation will remain what they currently are, about 10:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. And again, the lion's share of the business will be as it is now, food services.
Thank you. Linda, do you have a comment?
I changed my mind.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments for David?
Just want to know when the wine tasting is, that's all.
I'll ask Nico, I'll give him a call tomorrow and I'll report back.
Okay.
Thank you.
So can I ask you, so is this, Javier, I don't have my agenda up in front of me. Is this just an informational item tonight? And
Well,
then it goes to,
that's what I was gonna ask. Do you need an action from us, David?
That would be helpful. Technically, as long as I have the agenda, I'm making a presentation. And I have a copy I can share with the planning department about that I was agendized for a community meeting. I think technically that's what's required, but it would be helpful, I think, to have a letter of support just in case, and just to dot my I's and cross my T's.
Okay. Well, we have a quorum on Central, so maybe I can get someone to make a motion on this.
I'll make a motion for Central to support
Okay.
the application.
Thank
Support
you,
the
Linda.
application for, well, okay.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Frank. Okay, we will take a quick vote. Lamar,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes,
Frank.
Yes.
Okay, we'll pass this and we will provide a support letter for you, David.
Javier, did you vote?
Sorry, I assume I I was voting in my mind. Thank you. Yes,
Oh, okay.
Javier, changed my mind again.
Linda.
Yeah, I was debating because it's well known at this point, but Yolanda of Sirens is working on opening a speakeasy with beer and wine, and she is coming to our Central Neighborhood Council Committee meeting next week.
Yes.
And we will take it to our general board a couple of weeks following to support her in her endeavor. And like David's talking about the good citizenry, I hardly think there's a better citizen in town than Yolanda Regalado. And
Where's that gonna
I'm a little
be?
prejudiced there, but so we will undoubtedly be excited to support her in that endeavor.
Where is that going to be?
It's north. There's a door north of Mesa, going north from Sirens. It's part of a building.
In her building, yeah.
Okay.
In her building, not in Sirens, separate from Sirens,
Yeah, I
but
understand that.
next door to the north. Yeah.
Okay, so the thing that you changed your mind, was it the vote or?
No, it was to tell you about that.
Oh, okay, okay, good. Just for the record. Thank you. Diana, I don't know if you guys want to make a motion on that.
I think that, I think it's good for Central to do it, and we'll pass on it.
Do we have a quorum even?
Yeah, we have a quorum. Do you want to, if someone wants to make a vote, then that's fine.
I'll move.
Second.
Rock,
That was Rock, and I'll second it.
Mark moved.
And take note of that I moved and Pat seconded.
You surprised?
Okay, I gotta call roll. Chuck Hart?
Yes.
Yes. Jason?
Yes.
Linda Alexander?
Yes.
Pat Nave?
Yes.
Rock Ashfield?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so it was unanimous. So we'll also move forward to our board for a letter. So I get 2 letters out of us so far. And then Dell has her hand up.
Let me see, David, did you say that they're going to be expanding slightly, the size of the restaurant? Did I hear you say that?
Correct. Correct.
Are they going to the back or are they taking over next door?
taking over next door to the alley. So they'll extend all the way out to the alley.
Oh, okay. Is there going to be any live entertainment or music?
No live entertainment. That's why we're able to take, or Nico is able to take advantage of this program. So there's no live entertainment, no DJ or any type of entertainment at all.
Okay.
It's strictly the existing restaurant use.
Are you the attorney representing them, or what's your capacity?
I'm the land use consultant. So some of the on the call now, I was the former. Oops.
But Adele, I plan on singing there at the bar, so there you go.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't know. We don't know about the customers.
All right. Well, oh no, the food's great there.
So
I think
Robin,
we're all happy.
Adele and Robin, do we have a quorum for coastal?
Yeah, but I was gonna say,
No.
maybe we'll bow out. I mean, we haven't seen the plans or the parking plan or anything like that. I mean, we wish you luck, and generally as individuals.
It's just the wine and
support.
beer license.
It's right. They're extending their service on wine and beer. I mean, they're extending their license, and then they will be expanding. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
They will be expanding.
Yeah, I think you've got plenty of support without us.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say, as a member of Coastal Land Use Committee, I mean, Nico is a great business owner. He brings a lot of energy to downtown, and I think it's a great expansion plan that deserves support. So I just want to say, David, thank you for being with us tonight.
And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the support.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Wait, yeah, David, let me just ask, what's your timeline since these have to go to our boards? What's your timeline? These do have to go to our boards.
You know, technically, like I said a few minutes ago, I think I can use the agenda from tonight's meeting that I can send to the planning department and know that it's the presentation has already occurred. So that'll technically give me the opportunity to file that application, and then I can wait. Give a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, and that's the proposed CIS in support of Council File 22-0265, and Lori Jacobs is here to talk about it.
Hi, thank you very much. I've enjoyed this meeting. And I didn't know if you were going to show the actual motion on the screen. It's been posted, so I'm assuming that you've all read it. I am the homelessness liaison with the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council. And I also work with the South Bay City Council of Governments, but I'm here more as a stakeholder to present this to you. And I've written a community impact statement. The gist of this motion from the city council is there are too many barriers to tenants getting housed. And as we all know, what's going on with the homeless crisis. So I've written this community impact statement asking them to support, and keep in mind, this is just to support a report on the development of an ordinance to eliminate certain barriers to housing applications. Most of these involve credit scores. So as the motion outlines, the rent burden in LA and the COVID pandemic have really placed a lot of people in jeopardy and in debt, and it hurts their chances of renting units. And a landlord can't refuse to rent to a tenant because of race, gender, national origin, religion, or handicap. So prospective tenants with low credit scores do not rate that same level of protection. So a low credit score can disqualify somebody from a property rental. Landlords have been using a threshold requirement of 650 credit rating. I wonder how many of you will pass a 650 credit rating. And due to the error of reporting level with credit reports, which is pretty high, and past rent and utility payments are not included in credit reports. So a landlord should be more concerned with how somebody's been paying their rent and utilities than they paid their Visa bill or their Target credit card. Okay. Last year, the county received 6,806 emergency housing vouchers. And we should be prioritizing the utilization of that assistance, not creating detriments or obstacles. As of today, of these emergency housing vouchers issued to the county, 5,329 have been awarded, but only 1,460 have been actually matched up to housing. That's only 27%. There's a sunset date on these federally funded vouchers. How shameful that such a high percentage are not being used with the landlord rejection due to credit ratings being such a huge factor. And studies have shown that the credit reports that they use have at least a 20 to 25% error rate, and people don't have any way of doing anything about that. So what I'm asking is that we support this motion so they can report back on an ordinance that possibly could eliminate these barriers, and let's get people housed. Let's do it right away. Let's take advantage of the federal funded housing vouchers. That's my pitch.
Thank you, Lori. Has everybody had a chance to see it? The CIS?
Jason, a co-host, so maybe he could put it up on the screen.
I think I can.
You can do it.
I think I might be able to do it. No? Jason, can you do that? In meantime, Elise has a comment or question.
I do, Lori. So I totally understand the intent, but I work with a lot of mom and pop landlords where their property is their retirement. It's a small apartment building of 4 units. It's a duplex. They've been devastated during the pandemic because they've had to make their mortgage payments to the bank. So I hope that the small mom and pops will have an opportunity to really weigh in on public hearings as this moves forward, because I understand the intent of it. But I do want a clarification. What I heard in the news was that these housing vouchers are going back to the feds because of the lack of available housing stock. Not necessarily because of the credit rate. And I know some Section 8 landlords have accepted like security deposit from HACLA. I mean, there's other things that can be layered on. So I'm just hoping there's going to be a robust public process so the small landlords can really weigh in on this issue, because it's not the big corporate landlords, it's the small landlords that have really been suffering with the rent moratorium and other issues related to rent and tenants. So that's just my 2 cents.
No, I get that totally, Elise. And smart landlords during COVID would have accepted housing vouchers because they would have gotten paid their rent, as opposed to the people who are using the eviction moratorium. Okay, so this was an opportunity. Okay, the housing vouchers pay for most of the rent. And so for the mom and pops, and I hear you totally, okay, the housing vouchers will cover most of the rent.
No, I hear you, Lori, and I have hosted forums at the chamber on this issue. And I mean, there's mom and pops that have been burned by the old Section 8, and it's just re-education, continuous re-education on the new program. But I hear what you're saying. I just want them to, I just want to be assured they're going to be able to weigh in on this.
And I totally get that. And, you know, we use the word housing vouchers, and Section 8 choice vouchers are a little bit different than the federally funded emergency.
Right. I hear you. I hear you. Mm-hmm.
Pat Name, do you have a comment?
I have several. First of all, I want to tell Elise how much I admire how you present things. I'm trying to learn how to be diplomatic.
She's A+.
Yeah. And that being said, now I'll be my usual self.
Uh-oh.
Well,
seriously, I'm scared.
I do have a couple of suggestions to make on the draft CIS, Lori, but I will say at the outset that the 6 items that are on page 2 of the motion, I think if those are implemented as an ordinance, we will see all investment in rental property and rental development come to a grinding halt in the city of Los Angeles. No developer in their right mind would build an apartment house for affordable housing with this kind of, with these kinds of restrictions, particularly the last one, including a private right of action for prospective renters. That being said, I want to turn to the CIS. The last sentence says in it, landlords receiving rent payments through EHVs should not have the need for a credit background check, as the government will pay the rents on time. I think that's partly correct, isn't it? They don't pay the entire rental. They pay it so that the tenant only pays up to like 30%, something like that, of demands.
30%, I think, of their income. It depends. They're not all the same situation, Pat.
Yeah, we've. I got to tell you, you know, we don't have a lot of stuff out there, but we have had some tenants that wouldn't pay anything on time. It doesn't matter how much they were making or how much they had or anything else, or how much they were being subsidized. And the only way you find that out is to find out if somebody pays their bills on time.
Well, Pat, if they don't pay their portion, they lose their voucher.
Well, that's fine, but then try to get them out.
Yeah, try and get them out.
You can't. So I really think that council should be looking on at something else. And I have a proposed paragraph to consider. I don't know, it should be an amendment. This isn't on the floor yet, but it seems to me the council should be looking at what it is that people need to be able to survive in Los Angeles. So I'd rather see the council, in addition to some things with rental programs, but have a far greater impact would be to work on the minimum wage, work on way of life issues like some support for transportation so they can get to a job, some support for after school programs and childcare programs and programs for safe neighborhoods. Let's work on that. I work on that too. But anyway, I searched the motion to find out what it is in here that I thought we could support. I didn't see a whole lot in here that I thought was supportable.
I can tell you that the governor signed SB, what is it, 1396 today, which is something that will try to make it mandatory that the credit reports include rent and utility payments. But it says that's not going to happen for quite a while. I understand the concerns everybody has, and everything you suggest are great things. We just can't, in my opinion, wait for those things to happen. I work with the outreach people, and I can tell you how many times somebody has a 580 credit rating and everything else was fine, and the landlord said no because of that, and yet the voucher's paying for most of the rent. And that credit rating, okay, more importantly, has nothing to do with how they have paid their rent in the past. It's just the people that are suffering are the low economic, they're you know, people of color. There's just no equity here. So I'll go along with whatever you say. I obviously feel very passionate about this. If you want to reword this and we look at it another time, I'm fine with that. And remember, this is just a report to come up with the ordinance.
Robin, you had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, this seems rather drastic. There's some good ideas. I don't like these credit report services with these algorithms that full of errors half the time. But I do agree with Elise, and I agree with Pat, especially regarding that sixth bullet. So I would like to take this back to my full committee. We meet in just a little over a week, so and then perhaps come back with some specific recommendations, and I hope you can join us, Lori. I'd also like to see Pat's proposal, you know, as we look into how we may want to make a recommendation.
Yeah, let's work together on this. I think we can come up with something better.
Okay, great.
I really appreciate the feedback. I appreciate having your time. I knew this was not going to be a slam dunk with you guys. I get it. And I'm, you know, all I know is I deal with it every day. And I see over and over how credit reports that are not accurate are keeping people from housing that landlords would have accepted them.
Yeah.
No, you're right, Lori. There is a problem, and I thank you for bringing it forward. And Robin, thanks for agendizing it at our committee.
Absolutely. That'll be on Saturday, the 8th, Lori.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask Lori what the timeline is on the motion before council?
That's such a funny question, Pat. They put the motion through in March. And I keep trying to follow with the Homeless and Poverty Committee, and they keep canceling their committee meetings at City Council. So I'm not sure what the timeline is. So there's no rush apparently with City Council. I feel a sense of urgency, but
I think we're up against an election too, and so I think that may be impacting their calendars or scheduling.
Makes sense.
Okay, let's move on.
thank you.
Lori, we're gonna take this back to Central's meeting next week, so we will further look into it as well. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to updates and other items of interest to the committee. Diana, do you have anything for us?
I've got several things, and then I have a couple other people hopefully will give a report. First one is that Amy, who was our primary contact with the council office, has now left the council office. So all planning issues will be handled directly by Allison, who is swamped. But yeah, great person, just very swamped. But one of the things that we had talked to Amy about before she left was the cannabis ordinance, because the cannabis ordinance as currently written does not include the parks that are owned by the port as sensitive receptors. It does other parks, but not the ones owned by the port. And so she has recommended, or their office has recommended, that each of the neighborhood councils write a letter about this to the planning department and then to whoever the new council person is. So I'll draft something for our next meeting on that. At the same time, she reported on 2 cannabis shops, one at 1705 South Gaffney that currently has a temporary approval to engage in cannabis activity for retail. And the other one, the one that some of us are aware of in Northwest, the one at 1121 North Gaffney. And what she said, and I don't totally understand this, it was in writing, not an opportunity to ask her questions. They're currently undergoing the TA process with the Department of Cannabis Regulation. And they currently have a local compliance underway for retail. So I think they're going through the local compliance process, but have not yet been approved, is how I read that. With regard to the billboards that we've all been questioning, the billboard at the end of the freeway, she indicated that the council office is planning to set up a meeting with the community, with community members sometime towards the end of October to talk about the billboard. Western Avenue, I'm wondering, did anyone attend the public meeting on the bicycle lanes?
I probably will.
No, this one already happened.
Oh, no.
No, okay. No, but then you're getting to the one on October 4th, I think is what you're talking about, Javier. There is an upcoming public meeting on October 4th that I sent out today. It's on a Western Avenue project update. And there's 3 parts to it. One is traffic flow improvements, which is going to involve a comprehensive traffic study. The second one is beautification. They've set aside around $140,000 to do some beautification. And the third part is economic development, which seems to relate to their proposed mixed-use overlay district. So they're going to be talking about those 3 things plus the bicycle lane at that meeting, and talking about what's going to roll out over the next few months. I think the mixed use overlay is a particularly interested one to this committee. Miramont College, I assume you all saw that UCLA bought both properties.
Oh,
And you may recall.
Yeah,
good.
Don't know what they're going to do with them yet, but I mean, they haven't said what they're going to do with them. It's interesting that the one where the housing is now actually had approval to be built out as a campus for Marymount. But I have a feeling that that approval has probably expired, so we shall see. Oh, also on Western Avenue, people have been asking about what's happening on Western Avenue with a couple of places. RPV has received an application to rehabilitate the strip mall that's on the south side of Trudy. That little strip mall in there. Rock, I know you asked me about that several times. So they will be reviewing that application. They are not aware of anything in terms of Marie Callender's or the old Cocos.
And there's no residential thing going up where the strip mall is.
Well, not in what was submitted, but it appeared that I caught a sentence in the staff report that makes me think that maybe the staff want to discuss that with them. But what was submitted did not include any residential. But speaking of their residential, on October 15th, they're going to do some kind of an open house for their mixed use only district. It's going to be from 10 to 2 up at the terraces. I don't know where at the terraces. They said they'll be sending out more information about that. But that's the mixed use district that would allow the housing on Western Avenue.
A mixed use on the Terraces Shopping Center?
No, the mixed use, the hearing about the mixed use would be at the Terraces Shopping Center.
Well, okay.
Okay,
It's
well,
not one of the, I don't think it was one of the properties that was identified for mixed use.
I'm glad I moved.
I wanted to have Elise give us an update on the Croatian Cultural Center, and then I want to talk about Harborview House. So Elise, you want to talk to us about what's happening with the Croatian Cultural Center?
Just very briefly, the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce is working with the council office. We're in discussions on taking over management of the Croatian Cultural Center. It's been pretty much vacant for probably 4 years. So it would be a business source center. The chamber would be operating out of the building there on Pacific. We're very excited about the opportunity to help revitalize Pacific Avenue by bringing services to that building. And we would set up the ground floor for community space, for meetings and other opportunities such as that. So we've done a full commercial inspection of the building. It came back, it looks pretty good. The elevator is going to be inspected shortly. We're cleaning out the building, and we're going to start negotiations with general services. As many of you know, the building was damaged. Individuals went in through the roof, ripped out copper plumbing. So we're working with a commercial plumber to get an estimate on what it would take to replace the copper and the plumbing system. So more to follow, but that's our intent. We're very, very excited about the opportunity of returning that building to community use.
And Elise, would the chamber actually move into that building?
Yes, we would operate from that building. So we would move our offices there. We own our building at 390 West 7th Street. We've owned it since 1965, and we will continue to own the building and lease it out.
Great news. Thank you.
I knew people were excited.
I don't know about negotiating with general services, but we'll see what happens.
That could take a while. And then several of us went on a tour of Harborview House, and I just wanted to see if anyone had any comments about it. And I know Javier and Pat both had comments.
Well, I mean, it's great to see what they're doing and, taking care of the building. Some of the decisions they made, I don't quite agree with it, but, that's just me being an architect. But in general, I think it's going to be a very nice project, restoring some of the valuable parts of the building and keeping it intact. So, definitely looking forward to seeing that being renovated and given a new use. I had a chance to visit it many years ago, and I was hoping that it would eventually become something else. So this is the time. So definitely very, very interesting.
Pat, did you want to say anything?
No,
Oh. Jason? What?
Which Jason?
Oh, there you go.
I took a bunch of photos and some videos and posted it in the San Pedro Facebook group. So if you guys want to see what was going on, you can go over to the San Pedro Facebook group and find this post, which a lot of people did. So 200 likes. Hey, it's a popular post, so you should be able to find it.
Oh, excellent. I'll have to look for it. I took some photos, but I think he took more than I did.
Hey, can you send me what you posted?
Yeah.
Great. They invited us to come back for another tour in another 2 or 3 months when it gets a little farther along.
Yeah. Yeah, so expected completion was late next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Augie still online?
No,
No, he left.
so that ended my updates unless somebody else, well, we're still seeing this.
Well,
No, I think is it Frank? You have a item to report?
What's that?
I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted, Diana, have you finished your report? Because I wanted an update on a couple items.
Yeah, I finished my report. What, go
Okay,
ahead.
one is any news on Walker's Cafe?
Other than the fact that they're gonna come to our meeting next month.
So there's no news in between about any work, unauthorized work going on or whatever.
Nothing specific that I know. Elise, did you know anything more?
I don't. I just that the owner will be starting community outreach next month.
Yeah. So
Okay, that's good.
everybody come to our meeting.
And my second question is,
Wait a minute, I have some gossip on that. Grapevine says that the owner is really unhappy because she's been stopped. They've come in and told her that inside there's things she's done that she has to undo, and that she's frustrated and delayed and unhappy. That's gossip.
But she stated today that she's committed to continuing with the project, and they may operate it themselves as a family for the food and beverage service.
Oh,
that'd be great.
That's good news. Yeah.
I have another question. This is probably for Elise. Several months ago, we talked about PBID and the chamber coming up with some kind of parking management program. And has there been any movement on that?
Oh, Frank, we could go on for hours. Yes, we're still in discussions with the Topaz building ownership. They have stated that it's going to take about $200,000 to put the automated parking system into the building to open it for public parking. The city has potential grant funds of $76,000. There's back and forth. So more to follow, Frank. I would like to maybe do a deeper dive next month. But that was the linchpin of our plan. The parking lot at 6th and Harbor has helped, and we're trying to activate the PBID trolley more to do parking on outside people in, but you can agendize me next month, Diana, and hopefully I'll have a better report. Ownership has gone back to review a few.
Uber. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, I don't believe we have any additional comments. So I'll bring up the next item, which is public comment on items not on the agenda. Do we have any? Don't see any raised hands, so that is the end of our meeting, and I thank everyone for being here. We will have our next meeting on Wednesday, October 26th. So, and we will include an update on Walker's Cafe from what I see. So Thanks, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you, Javier.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Diana. Thanks, everyone.